Hello, hello, Edson Oliveira here. This is yet another DNN Summit interview. This is the sixth interview that I'm doing, and I have with me David Kidd, Jonathan Shiley, and Bogdan Litescu. Let's start with David here. David, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your session on DNN Summit?
Yeah, my name is David Kidd, and I'm the Director of Digital Marketing at Steady Rain in St. Louis, Missouri. Steady Rain's been a DNN partner for, I believe, the better part of 10 years or so. And during my session, I'm going to be focusing on how to leverage DNN to make your site as mobile friendly from an SEO perspective as possible.
Perfect, perfect. Bogdan, let's go to you now. Introduce yourself, tell us where you're coming from, and what's your session all about.
Yes, so my name is Bogdan Litescu. I am the owner of DNN Sharp. We are a module provider. We are a top module provider on DNN Store. And our products focus mostly on application building. And my session at DNN Summit next year will be about CDN, because we built a CDN product and we acquired a lot of knowledge, and we are passing some of that knowledge during my session.
Great, great, great. Okay, John, yourself. Introduce yourself. Tell us about your session as well.
Sure. Jonathan Shiley. I am an application developer and have for many years. I guess I used to say over 10, but I think I'm getting over 20 now. But I'm kind of the second old guard of DNN. I've been around since version 4 and dealing with everything. My session is on why Node.js is important, even if you're ASP.NET. And what that has to do with in the kind of application development that I see, moving forward is more client-side driven and API server-side. So where DNN fits in with the single-page applications. That's all the server-side stuff, but then there's a lot of tooling and a lot of development that needs to happen for your client-side application, and showing how to wire all that up and put those two things together so that they don't seem like, foreign entities to each other. They really do commingle, and there's a good reason for both of them to exist together.
Very good, very good. David, let's come back to you. So your session is about SEO having mobile in mind. So if I ask you, what is the difference between just I will call it regular SEO and having SEO in mind in terms of mobile as well? What is the catch there? What is the difference there?
Yeah, a lot of what you need to do from an SEO perspective is the same, whether it's desktop, mobile, tablet. But beginning in January of next year, Google's actually going to be rolling out a mobile-specific index. So all the search results that show up on a mobile device are going to be utilizing the new Google index that's specific to mobile. And there's a couple of different optimization tips and tricks that you can use to make sure that your site is as optimized as possible for mobile, beyond just simply having a responsive site. A responsive site's more or less a must-have in these days, but making sure that your site is fast, trying to leverage Google's AMP technology, minimizing any kind of excess code or JavaScript or anything on your site. All of these things can help to contribute to improving your site's mobile SEO status, where page speed is probably one of the largest ranking factors involved in Google's 200 plus ranking factors that are going to be rolling into the mobile index.
Got it. I guess that, in a way, David, best practice in SEO in general, this is just an extension to that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a best practice for SEO and DNN, but also what are a couple of little things that you can do from an on-page presentation standpoint to improve conversion rates and make your mobile experience a little bit better for users that are going to come in through a search engine. So more than just the technology behind what you need to do from an SEO perspective, but also the user experience and how that's going to weigh into Google's mobile index and how they rank sites on mobile devices.
Got it. So just to finalize on that point, so what you're saying is that very soon, if you search on a mobile device and if you search on a desktop, you're going to be getting different results. Is that what I'm sensing here?
It's quite possible, yeah. They're going to be actively discounting sites that are not mobile friendly. And then they're going to have different ranking algorithms that are firing off on a mobile device versus a desktop device. So if you rank number 3 on a desktop device, but your site's extremely slow and you only have a handful of pages of your site that's been made responsive, you might rank on page 2 or page 3 for that exact same keyword on a mobile device. It just depends on what your competitors are doing and what the landscape looks like overall.
Got it. Got it. By the way, for all of you guys, if you have questions to each other, please feel free to say, hey, Anderson, I'd like to ask that to David, or I'd like to ask that to Bogdan. So feel free to listen to each other and chime in as well. I'll leave it up to you if you want to do that. Anyway, moving on here. David, I'll come back to you in a second. Let's go to Bogdan. Bogdan, let me ask you this. What are some of the challenges that you face on DNN when you want to use a CDN?
I think the biggest challenge is people, because there is like a resistance in DNN to using cloud services. So I think that's the biggest problem. In terms of implementation, the biggest problem I think is to catch all the URLs to resources that you want to move to the CDN, because not all resources come in a standard way. Like you have the client resource manager in DNN, but not everybody is using it. For example, we at DNN Sharp, we are not using it. We have not used it for a long time because it was different version in every DNN and it was a mess to manage. So we built our own mechanism. But every provider would have its own inclusion scheme. So the biggest challenge is to catch all those URLs and rewrite them to serve the request from CloudFront. Then I think the next biggest problem is to keep files in sync, because you don't want users to get outdated content from CDN, outdated files like CSS file or images.
Got
and
it. Go ahead, sorry.
I think that those are the 2 major technical problems.
So let me ask you this. CDN is not for, I would say, an amateur user, is it?
I think it can be. It depends. I mean, if you want to implement your own CDN, then yes, it will not be for the amateur users. But there are solutions out there, like we built our solution, and I know there are some other solutions out there that make it really easy. They just automatically move all the files to the CDN and handle refreshing them and everything. So it's just as easy as installing any module and configuring it and turning it on. Got
it. So if I ask you, what are some of the common CDN offerings out there in the market that someone that has a DNN website could leverage those CDN options? What are the most common ones?
So right now, I think I saw a lot of users in DNN using CloudFlare. CloudFlare is actually more than a CDN. They also try to move the entire website to the CDN. But the problem with DNN is that you have so much dynamic content that it basically just goes down to static files, caching static files. I also saw some module from NBrain, but I'm not sure if it's valid anymore, if it's still maintained. And then it's our product, which is already gaining traction, and people have already started using it, and they love it.
Yeah, I have to tell you, we have quite a few clients that use CloudFlare as their option. I'm not sure if it's because it's very, I don't know, easy to use or very simple. I don't know, but I guess that your offering is a bit, and I don't want to make this advertisement to your product, but I guess that what you're offering compares with something like CloudFlare. I mean, even though CloudFlare seems to be a lot more, but does it, from a CDN point of view, does it compare to that?
The difference between Cloudflare and our implementation is that Cloudflare basically moves the DNS to their side, so it's basically a proxy. So every request would go through their servers, and this for dynamic content can actually slow things down because there's an extra connection to be made. The user connects to the CloudFront server, and then the CloudFront server connects to your physical server.
Got it.
But for static files, it would behave about the same.
Okay, perfect. So again, come back to you in a second. John, my brother is a developer as well. And I said, you know what, I have to talk to this guy about Node.js. And I have no idea, no effing idea about what the heck is Node.js. Do you know anything about that? And I asked him, I said, you know what, I know a little bit, but not too much, so don't ask me. So my question to you is, what is Node.js?
Sure. It's in a lot of ways, it is no different than .NET. So .NET is a VM, a virtual machine that happens to run application code. So is Node.js, and for a lot of ways, so is Java. Java VM. They are all exactly the same as far as that goes. So it's just a engine that essentially runs code. What code you can run on there is the difference between JavaScript versus C# or VB.NET. The benefits of Node over, say, C# in a lot of ways, or the ASP.NET, is the ecosystem. So up until .NET Core had come out, we did not have a cross-platform way of dealing with things. So we only had our Windows community, essentially, that was building things. Well, the ecosystem behind Node is much larger and has been for several years. So we have a lot more packages and utilities that came out of that ecosystem that we don't have yet in .NET. Just little things like you want to, concatenate a bunch of files. You had to rely on this one little thing in .NET to do that, where in Node there's like 50 and you get to pick best in class flavor because a lot of different developers have been working on this for a lot of years. And that's just one of the many benefits of what Node offers.
Got it.
So.
Okay. So if you want to quote unquote sell the idea or the concept of a DNN module developer using Node.js, can you give me a little bit more context there into why I would be using Node.js? I mean, again, give me some specifics here.
Sure, and this is where it comes where it's not just an application development platform. So you're not just running your application on it, which you could. The selling point is for us .NET people. I'm a .NET guy. I write tons of Node things, but I'm a .NET guy. The benefit of it is all the stuff on the client. So for the client side stuff, a lot of us, going forward, we use Angular, we use React, we use, even Knockout or insert, the random flavor of the year client side MVC framework. So we use these things on the client, but then we also use other little things like other tools like what happens when you want to do a bunch of AJAX requests or you manage pipelines. So we use little libraries for accounting or the reactive extensions to kind of manage flow. So we do all that. Now we need to build it all together into a single package that can be deployed and managed and cache busted and all that stuff. So organizing all of your resources, but allowing you to break up everything and also use best-in-class features that have already been developed by people, because it's very difficult to just bring in a library into your into your client-side resource now that does X, Y, or Z without a lot of headache. So having the tooling on the client to just bundle all that together through systems like Webpack or systems like that allow you to bundle everything together, use all the features that other people have developed, just stand on the shoulders of giants, as it were, and you get to build your business resources. You don't have to focus on things that don't matter to you. Such as trying to figure out how to link to a CDN. Someone has already created that package to replace all of your client-side code and build so that it just, all those resources can go to a CDN.
Got it. So Node.js comes to aid the developer, the programmer, the coder. Is that what I'm sensing here?
Yeah, that's just again one way you can use it, and that's the way I tend to use it a lot of ways. So it's an aid. Before Node, we would have used things like MS Build or Nant to help us do some of these tasks that routine. So I guess everyone for a long time used the MS Build, I forget the exact name, extensions for module packaging for DNN. So did simple things like just globbed up all of the resources in the folder and zipped them up into a zip file called resources.zip, and then put that into another zip file. Things like that are now widely available in .NET, or excuse me, in Node, where you just one line of code and it just does all that for you. You don't have to think about actually, doing a file system .iterator and grabbing all the files and zipping up each and every one. Like, no one wants to think about how to do that. It's a solved problem. So let's just, use the solved problem and move on and work on our, business needs.
When you compare that, and again, I know that Node can do a lot more than that, can go way beyond that. But when you compare that to MS Build, now it did really click to me that what you really are using Node for. And again, I know that can be done. It can be used for a lot more than that. But that really clicked well with me. David, going back to you. What is Google AMP? That was the first time that I came across that term, and I did some research. Of course, I found out a little bit, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about that. What's Google AMP?
So Google AMP stands for Google's Accelerated Mobile Pages, and it's essentially a way for developers to deliver very pared down versions of their site with basically just the HTML that can be served up and cached in Google a lot quicker and easier than a traditional site. Originally, when it came out about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, it was only for news sites. So only Wall Street Journal, New York Times, things like that could access AMP and actually use it. But now Google's rolled that out to basically any and all web pages. So if you have some quick, dirty information that you just want to get into a web page and try to get it to rank a little bit better in the cards that you can see in a mobile device, you can use AMP to mark up the page and deliver a pared down version of your website to try to get more traffic and try to boost your ranking there and get into that card scenario in the search results.
Got it. Have you been able to use that with a DNN website?
We're in the process of figuring all of that out right now and starting to put some things together. We hope to have a couple of examples during the session to actually show people. So,
perfect. That's
David, do you see similarities between AMP and basically the next generation of RSS feeds?
Somewhat, yeah. I'd say the biggest difference is probably just the way that they're going to be used within Google, to where you can actually optimize specific title tag elements, metadata around your overall SEO strategy for those AMP pages, where I'm not sure that you could really do that with an RSS feed, but yeah, very similar in the way that they're moving. Similar to, I believe Facebook came out with their own language to serve up content within Facebook's newsfeed. And there's a handful of other types of markup like this.
Very good, very good. Bogdan, let me ask you a question. Do you have any horror story or any common problems that you see when you are dealing with a CDN? Or again, if you have a horror story, it would be a good one to talk. But what are some of the common problems that you see when people try to deal with CDN,
Like, I think I've already talked to you about this. So I think the biggest problem is caching, and I don't think this is just for the CDN. I think it's for every developer. Caching is like a horror story. And with the CDN, the problem is that the designer would update files on local disk. And then you need somehow the CDN would know to grab the new files, but the CDN doesn't connect on every request to check if there's a new file. And then also you cannot check the file on every request, because then you are touching the disk, and that will become very, very slow. The website will become very slow. So one of the solutions that we implemented was to implement a file watch, which basically watches for file changes and then increments a version. And we just change the version in the URL, and then that forces CloudFront to see it as a new file and grabs it from from the server again. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Good.
Yeah, having experienced that, I can echo Bogdan's pain. So there's four major problems in computing: naming things, cache invalidation, and off by one errors. So cache invalidation has definitely been something I've dealt with in DNN as well. And it's fun to try to figure that out. So when a site is in development, everything is fine. Because you usually turn off, CDN, or that's the best time not to have the CDN is in development. But when you launch it out, someone changes a picture. So you change the masthead and then you hit refresh. And let's say it works for you because the CDN updated, because CDNs are usually globally distributed in a best case scenario. So it worked for you. But somebody on the other side of the US or the other side of the world is still seeing the old image and they're yelling at you, it doesn't work. It's like, no, I changed it. You gotta wait, but no one wants to wait. It's, the internet, it's fast moving. So trying to do, and that's a great solution, Bogdan, is to basically just force, clear the CDN as fast as possible when you've changed something. And it's not all the providers are apt to do that.
Perfect. Any comments there, Bogdan?
I can't think of any.
Okay, perfect. It's good to have a closure. So, John, let me ask you the last question here. Are you going to be showing coding there on your session? Is that about preaching Node.js, or is more, there's a coding side of things as well?
Yes, I do. I will show plenty of script resources and how to get started. I'll breeze by some of those things, but mostly it's a kind of explanation, coding, and setup, as well as a little bit of the preaching is why this is useful and to make sure everyone is kind of on board with. Because, like I said at the beginning, I'm a .NET guy, and I will probably be a .NET guy for the foreseeable future, but there's time and a place to use the right resource for the right reason. So one of my taglines basically is I will use whatever technology is best suited for the job. So in a lot of ways, I'm a DNN and .NET guy, but sometimes WordPress is useful, so I'm not against bringing that. And one of the solutions that that come out of that is integrations between the two. So having done that a lot of time, I've actually written modules that extend content out of DNN to feed up onto a WordPress blog.
Perfect. Okay. So those were the main questions. What I want to do on this round now is just to see what is the one thing that each one of you want people to leave your session knowing. So I'm going to start with you, David. David, what is the one thing that you want people leaving your session knowing about? What is the one thing?
I think it's just the importance of having a dedicated SEO strategy for your mobile audience, seeing as in most B2C scenarios, more than 60% of your traffic is probably coming in via mobile devices. And even on the B2B front, we know that more and more business decisions are getting made with business professionals on the go on their mobile device. So really just having a dedicated strategy around SEO for mobile devices. That's the biggest thing I want people to think about when they leave the session, but also to have some tangible things they can go back and check on and work with their development teams with.
Got it. Okay. Bogdan, same thing to you. What is the one thing that you want people leaving your session knowing about?
I guess it would be that the benefits of having a CDN. And we did a lot of testing, and we squeezed performances up to 60% out of DNN instances. And that benefit outweighs the resistance to not using it, the CDN, because it basically reduces costs. It makes user experience much nicer because the website is faster. And it's not expensive at all. It's much more expensive to double the hardware than it is to implement a CDN.
Got it. I mean, I would say that really hit hard on that key there. That it's better to invest in CDN as compared to invest in hardware to make that that environment run better. That's a great selling point, you know. John, your turn. What's the one thing?
The one thing, don't be scared of a seemingly competing technology. It's just another tool in the toolbox, and use it if it suits you.
Very good, very good. Last point is there anything else that any one of you would like to mention about your session or about each other's session? I'm gonna go around again just quickly. David, anything else? Anything left?
No, I'd just like people to come to the session with an open mind. Oftentimes, SEO and SEO teams and development teams have to work together, sometimes contentiously. So just come into the session with an open mind and trying to think about the SEO implications from the other side of the table, I guess.
Perfect. Bogdan, yourself, anything else? Anything left?
I guess, yeah. What makes DNN slow? It's actually not a DNN problem. Or maybe the question is what makes CDN fast? It's not actually a DNN problem, but it's an ASP.NET problem and maybe an IIS problem, because when you have your website in integrated mode, basically all static resources file, they run through all the pipeline. So if you have an image file, ASP.NET will think maybe I should rewrite this file, maybe I should do something with it, and it takes maybe 200 milliseconds just to evaluate what to do with that file. Whereas when you have it on CDN, it's just served in, I don't know, 10 milliseconds.
Perfect.
So that's
and
what
John?
makes CDN really fast.
Sorry, Bogdan, you were finishing there.
That's what makes, why CDN makes DNN websites very fast.
Perfect. John, yourself, anything else left? Anything to be said?
Come to DNN Summit and have a great time. I'm definitely one of the type of speakers that or even sitting into sessions, I get a lot of value out of not necessarily the topic that the person is specifically talking about. It's the little things that the developer or speaker do, that side anecdotes. So maybe the software they use or the little commands that they use in order to do, whatever the task is, can sometimes be even more rewarding than the session at hand. So, I know a bit about Bogdan's topic, but DNN Sharp and their modules are the greatest. So watching every little thing that they do and that Bogdan does to get to that level of quality is interesting to me. So I would enjoy seeing on that.
And Bogdan, you have to send that check to John, okay? Anyway, again, John, great insight. That's a really great point where you get nuggets. The dev is on the details, and you can see a lot of great details about those talks. Again, great insight. Guys, that's it. That's really it. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate that. Finishing the 6th interview with the DNN Summit presenters here. Thank you very much. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye.